first official meal here in Nova Scotia, it has to be lobster. It's a lobster roll. So it's from Dave's, and we're here at the boardwalk, and I couldn't really decide what kind of lobster roll to get because there's actually several, so I got half and half. So one is warm and one is cold. So let's give it a try. I love this. Insane amounts of lobster. Really, really good. So juicy. Perfect. It's so weird. Either you see people in sleeveless and shorts, and others are in coats, and me, I'm just in a shirt and leather jacket. It really depends on you. It is such a clear, sunny day, but it's also so windy. So I'm here in the boardwalk, and this is one of the things that you should do when you're in Nova Scotia, at least downtown. It's a beautiful day. Grab some snacks, some food, stay by the water, see the birds, eat some ice cream. So sometimes you look in the globe and you have no idea where you are, but cartoons always help, don't you think? Now, where are we? So we're here right now, Halifax. This is where I really wanted to go. If you guys ever studied Anne of Green Gables, that's in Prince Edward Island. Oh my god, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, but unfortunately it is so far. So I guess I'll just have to stick with this map. So there are two highlights here in the Maritime Museum, and one of them is all about the Titanic. And one of the features here is you can actually sit down on a sample of one of the beach chairs that they had, which is only available for the first and second class passengers. It's not very comfortable. Okay, so do you remember the staircase where Rose met with Jack? It's just a photo, and Jack's not there, and neither is Rose, but there's me. I really do suggest coming to this museum if you are really, interested in everything about Titanic, because I learned in Newfoundland that it was about 300 something nautical miles away from Newfoundland where the Titanic sank. However, when they were rescued, a lot of the ones who survived actually sailed over to Nova Scotia, which is here, and hence, and because Halifax is also like the naval heart, the heart of the naval army, I guess is how you would call it, of Canada. So they have this Maritime Museum. So everything that you can possibly think of, from knowing about the third class, the first class, the second class, the types of porters they had, how they exactly sank, where the iceberg came from. Really, really interesting. I could spend hours here learning just so much about the Titanic. I mean, when you watch the movie, it's so romantic, it's so flowery, and then Celine Dion's song, but then you tend to forget that these people actually, so many of them died. And coming to this museum, it puts perspective into it, making it more human, bringing in the science, learning who is the who, how the boat was made, just everything that you can think of to make it more real. So I highly recommend coming here when in Halifax. So I'm here at the souvenir store, of flowers. How could you not get a sample of anything? And I just saw the whistle that they have on board, and it's showing its authenticity. And the way I just see it is, remember that scene in the end when Rose decides not to give up?
I'll never let go. I promise.
And she starts blowing her whistle so that she can get rescued. Yeah, that's the one. I'm here at the Fisherman restaurant. It's a really historical restaurant here in Halifax. Okay, it's a bit of a long story, but I can't even make it a long story short, but here are the main points. So if you guys have ever heard of the Broadway musical The King and I, apparently it's based on a true story. So Anna, who was the English teacher, she had turned this building into a school. And then after that, it had gone on to, it had become a funeral home owned by a man named, guess what? John Snow. That's right. So John Snow and Sons had used this as a funeral parlor. And what makes this funeral parlor quite significant is because in 1912, with the Titanic sank, this was used. And then during the Great Fire, the Great Explosion, also in Halifax, this funeral parlor was also used. And then later on and so forth, this had become a restaurant. I think what is most interesting is that this restaurant is so big and it's so packed. Well, it makes sense because it was a school, and they do say that there's a lot of hauntings here in the restaurant, you know, like taps going on, or utensils falling off from the floor, or lights switching on and off when there's nobody there. So in a way, that's kind of what we're hoping for, apart from a good dinner. So I learned something today on how to know if your lobster is fresh. So you want to make sure that when you're buying or when you're choosing your lobster, or when you see your dish, it has a long antenna. That means because the lobsters, usually when they're inside an aquarium, they tend to eat each other's antennas. So if they've been in there for quite a while, the antenna for sure has shortened by quite a lot. So even if it's still alive, it's just not, I guess, not as fresh because it's been there for quite a while. And apart from that, the meat actually shrinks. So even if it's a big shell, you get less meat. So if you see that this is quite long, then you know it's absolutely fresh, has not gotten the chance to be eaten off yet, and that is what I have on my plate. So we're here in the public garden in Halifax, and it actually celebrated 150 years of being open. So this garden is really for that, you know, just take a gander and just admire all the beautiful flowers, because I think it's one of the last remaining examples of a Victorian garden in North America. So it's not the place where, you know, you can bring your pets or take a jog, but you can take a stroll and take a look at all the beautiful flowers. Absolutely pretty. And because of the cold weather, you are for sure going to see a lot of roses and just flowers that you're not used to seeing, especially in places like the Philippines. Very romantic. And while there's no jogging, there is, however, fencing in the far off corner of the park. It's so nice that there's a couple of kids, some families in one corner just dedicated to just doing some fencing. Very nice. I gotta get the numbers right. So here at the Titanic gravesite, there's about 150 bodies that have been buried here. Some name and some still don't have an identity, just like the one over here. You see this? Which is quite sad. But more interestingly, let me show you this one. Okay, so this guy, Ernest Edward Samuel, he was one of the owners of the Titanic. And if you've ever watched the movie or documentaries, you know, of course, when they were evacuating all the passengers, they prioritized women and children. So what this guy did is he dressed up like a woman, he got into the boats, and you know, there's a boatman that was saying, he's like, what are you doing? You're not a woman, you're not a child. And he's like, look, I have a lot of money, I can take care of your family, just get me on this boat. And so years later, he had apparently, when he was walking down the streets of New York, he put his head down for many years, because it is quite suspect if you had survived Titanic and you were a man, because a lot of people died on that day in April 15th, 1912. So interesting. Okay, I think the two most famous names we know from the Titanic, the movie, are Jack Dawson and Rose something. Just Jack and Rose. Well, take a look at this. But it's not Jack. It's John. Could have been, but not really. So do you guys remember the very last scene when the ship was finally sinking? And there were violinists that decided, you know what, we're not going to leave, we're going to stay, we're going to keep playing. Well, he is one of them. John Law Young. Isn't that nice? When you dedicate your passion, your life's work for the good and to the death. It's so cold, so we are waiting for the cannons.
Yeah, right where that guy's standing. That's where you're gonna push the cannon up.
For the where? Oh, there he is. So they said they're gonna give us a 20-second warning to either do this or to take a photo. 20 seconds. 18. Oh! That was great.
The sentry will hear his favorite word today. Dismiss. That's what he likes to hear. And as soon as the corporal follows him into the guard room, you are welcome to go inside. Have a great visit.
Thank you. In a way, it's like they're celebrities. Everybody wants a selfie with them. They're so cool. They're wearing those really beautiful uniforms. So basically we're walking around and they're making like a replica of what the trenches were like. So inside that room was like a mini version, and this is sort of like the real version. So you know, you're like hiding in little mazes and stuff, and the part that we just saw is like where they have like those bags and then you duck for cover. And that in there was just a little room, a sample of the room of the quarters, because you know the soldiers actually had to keep warm, so they would be hiding underground. This is really cool, really cool. Look at that thing, like really giving you that scene, what it must have felt like during the war. Okay, so right now, just came from the trenches, and there's going to be a bagpiper walking by. We're just going to wait for him. So apparently they're undermanned today. So there was no drummer. He didn't play by our side, but it's okay. We heard him. And he's cute. He looks very young. Okay, Bianca, stop it. So excited because here at the farmers market you can buy so many organic fruits and vegetables, and because Nova Scotia, their official berry in this province is blueberry. Take a look at this.
Probably because they're not.
This whole tub right here is $20. This, and it includes a Tupperware, is just $10. That's like 400 pesos. This probably would cost like 5,000 pesos back home, or like $100. It's ridiculous. Like it's amazing. So we're gonna have this for dinner. And if she was actually saying the reason why they sell it in Tupperwares is that you can put it straight to the freezer. Unfortunately, we can't do that, so we're just gonna have to eat them while we're here. Cherries. And they have free samples. You see all that cake? I wish you guys could actually smell what I can smell right now. All the cakes, the cookies, the breads. I could live here. Everything's organic, free range, just fresh off the gardens. They're farms and a place where there's not a lot of chemicals and pesticides. That's a place not just for me, but for the whole world. Amazing, just amazing. I'm so excited. I don't even know what to eat. I got some fruit, but I don't know what salad to eat. Big house. Crazy. So this is the kitchen, at least a small part of it. Look how big these pots and pans are. So for how many people were they eating? Crazy.
And your receipt.
This is so cool. So it looks like a giant chair, but you can actually put this thing down and it becomes a table. Isn't that nice? It's a good thing to copy. That's why I had to show you guys. Multi-purpose, very sturdy. It says do not sit. Heading upstairs. Wow. Oh, this is nice. This is a lovely bedroom. I'm going to show you guys. It's a connecting bedroom. It seems like it belongs to a little girl. I guess one of the children. That's really pretty. Guessing this is like the cloakroom or their walk-in closet. I don't know if you can see, but even if it reflects me, it doesn't matter. But look at all these beautiful gowns and the shoes and the bags, and look at this hat. Ah, totally my thing. Very nice. So these belong to RJ Unijack's wife, Martha, who is the mother of 12 children, and she still stayed this sexy. How is that possible? Oh, sorry about that. So this room is actually a servant's bedroom that was just transformed to show you guys what the clothes were back then. Well, it still would have been a fabulous walk-in closet. Let's go back down. So that statue over there is Evangeline, and the story behind that is that she and her romantic partner were going to get married that day, but when the Acadians were banished from their lands, their men and women were separated, so she never actually found him again. So it's supposed to be a very sad remembrance of what happened. Oh, hello. Okay, I'm entering the church now. So here inside they're actually relating through paintings the story of how it all happened. So these people this is where they lived for centuries, and then suddenly the British came, and when they had invaded them, they suddenly lost all their homes, and they had this, they made this decree that they had to be all deported, and after that so many people were killed. A lot of their homes, if anything, everything, their farms, their homes, all their belongings were burned, so that it actually discouraged them from coming back. And so husbands and partners were separated from their families, from their children, from their wives, and yeah, it is very sad. I mean, I'll be honest, I had never heard of the Acadians until this trip, and that is, now it makes sense with that statue of Evangeline, that she is just one of the many women who had lost their love, their life, their home, the history, and it's so nice to learn something new about history and not just about Canada that we know now. So the Acadians had all this flat land that is a proof that there was so much harvest and corn and rice and all these plantations. And here is a bit of a sample of it. We have an apple orchard. I promise not to pick. This is just for photo purposes only. But I'll be honest, I'd never seen an apple tree before, and it's so nice that they're actually fallen on the ground, and it's just nice to see them up close. It's always nice when the tourists have all left. Okay, so we're here in Halls Harbor, and one of the reasons why tourists come here is because you can actually see how high the tide gets, up to 54 feet. And when the tides are really low, literally the ships are down below in the ground, but then it gets really high. So it's good to see how low it gets and how high it gets. But anyway, speaking of high, we are so excited because I am here where it's Halls Harbor Lobster Pound. And when you come here, you pick a lobster, small, medium, large, extra large, jumbo, obviously too expensive. And then you choose your sides and stuff, and then this is our number. Just gave it to the guy. Takes about 25 minutes, and that's the time you use when you're gonna go around, take your photos and whatnot. And then by the time that comes, you pick up your food and we enjoy. Okay, so do you see where all those trees are? That's actually how high the water gets. That's what I was saying. So when it's low tide, people like to go down and walk by the shore, because once the tide is so high, goodbye. It always sucks when you have just so little time to go all the way to where you want to go. Okay, so 5 minutes have elapsed. I have about kind of 5 minutes to get back. So that leaves me with 15 minutes to walk all the way across. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, the lobster is here. It's time to eat. So this is the medium size, and my mom says it's too big. Trust me, if she can't finish it, we will. It's like opening a present, so I want to show you guys the cloth. Here we go. So good. I want to show you something. Fat, cholesterol. So bad, but so good. Nova Scotia, there are so many trees, so much greenery. But here in Peggy's Cove, 4.5 million years ago, the glaciers had come in, and when they left, it had sucked out all the trees, all the soil, all the greenery, and it was left with all this rock, making it such a cool, very different landscape. This is truly unbelievable. I feel like I'm in a desert, but it's all credit. She would have this in her garden. But really though, I wish I could have stayed, sit by the waves, just not get caught with the wind. Okay, so you would think that this is actually rock, but this is an actual vertebrae. This is an actual vertebrae of a whale bone. Isn't that extraordinary? It is huge. And you would think it's probably part of a tree or a rock, but no. Actual fossil right here. So the artist, Degarth, he had actually carved all this into the stone, and it took him 10 years to complete. So this is what welcomes you when you enter Peggy's Cove. impressive the way that it's built right on top of a hill. Can you imagine a whole town? Quite impressive. And the reason why people also love to come here is they like to see those tall ships over there. I didn't know that's what they were called, so tall ships. Taking a walk around the town, looking at all the quaint stores. So this is pretty interesting. So right by the harbor, you can see it's like a memorial of all the vessels and the lives that have been lost. So dedicated to the memory of those who have gone down to the sea ships and who have never returned. There she is. And there she is up close. Well, there's one of them. That's Europa. Really is so beautiful. It's like I don't really know much about sailing, but it does look very traditional on boat, and they call it a tall ship. No, really, I have no idea what I'm talking about because I don't know terms, but they are beautiful. That's all I can tell you. Okay, so I gather this Blue Nose 2 is the showstopper. But it's closed though.